I got the call just as I was closing up my little cafe in Atlanta. My phone rang, and when I saw my daughter's name, my heart dropped. "Mom, please, I don't know what to do," she said, her voice trembling, cracking in a way that made my stomach twist. She was outside, on the sidewalk, holding her phone like it was the only thing keeping her tethered to the world. I could hear the distant hum of traffic, the faint shuffle of pedestrians around her. Her husband had locked her out, took the keys, the car, even her laptop, everything that made their apartment feel like home. I could almost feel the panic rising through the line, see the tears streaking down her face. "I don't have anywhere to go," she whispered, and my chest tightened. I told her to stay put, to breathe, and that I was coming. I threw my coat on, shoved my keys into my pocket, and ran to my car. On the way, every red light felt like a lifetime. Every turn a reminder that this wasn't just an argument or a fight. This was her life upended in an instant. My mind raced with questions. How could someone she trusted do this? How could he be so cruel? When I reached her, she was sitting on the curb, hugging her knees, shivering despite the mild October air. The smell of exhaust and faint autumn leaves mixed in the background. But all I could focus on was her face, pale, streaked with tears, eyes wide and scared. I knelt beside her, wrapped my arms around her trembling frame, and whispered, "You're not alone. I've got you. We'll figure this out." And for the first time that evening, I felt her relax, just a little. The fear still there, but a sliver of relief breaking through. Whatever this night was going to bring, we'd face it together. We walked down the street toward my car, her hand gripping mine like it was a lifeline. I kept glancing at her, noticing the way her shoulders hunched, the way she hesitated with every step, as if the pavement itself might betray her. I tried to speak softly. "We'll get you somewhere safe. Tonight it's just us." In the car, the heater blew warm air against our faces, but it couldn't chase away the chill running through her. She kept fiddling with her wedding ring, then finally slid it off and held it in her palm, like letting it go could somehow erase the betrayal. My heart ached watching her, knowing how much trust had been shattered. She tried to explain what happened, her words tripping over each other. He said I wasn't allowed to be here anymore. Took my things, the apartment keys, even my clothes." Her voice hitched, and I could hear the tremor of panic under the exhaustion. "Mom, I feel so stupid. How did I not see this coming?" I reached over, cupped her face in my hands, and looked her in the eyes. "Don't ever call yourself stupid. No one deserves this. This isn't your fault. Not one bit." My voice was firm, and I hoped it sank in, because right now she needed to feel the truth in her bones. She had done nothing wrong. We drove past familiar streets, the city lights blurred by tears and passing motion, until we reached my apartment. I opened the door, letting her slip inside before me. She sank onto my couch, curling up beneath a blanket I handed her. The room smelled like cinnamon and vanilla from the candles I'd lit earlier. A small comfort, but enough to make her pause, enough to let her breathe. She looked at me, eyes glistening. "I don't know what I'm going to do," she whispered. And in that moment I knew the night wasn't over. But at least she was safe, and for now, that was enough. By midnight, we were still sitting in my living room, the soft hum of the city outside our window, a distant rhythm against the storm in her chest. She hadn't said much, just stared at the floor, fingers tracing the edge of the blanket. I poured us both a cup of tea, hoping the warmth would do more than soothe our hands. "I can't believe he just took everything," she finally whispered, her voice small, almost lost. "My clothes, my laptop, even our cat." The last word made her choke, and I reached out, pulling her close again. "It's okay," I said, rocking her slightly. "We'll get it back. We'll fix this." My own anger simmered, but I kept it contained. Right now she needed my calm, not my rage. I could feel the tension in her body, every muscle tight, as if she expected him to appear in the doorway at any moment. I suggested a plan. "Tomorrow we start documenting everything. Pictures of the apartment if we can. A list of what's missing. Anything he took. We'll call the landlord, the police if we need to, and make sure this doesn't happen again." She nodded slowly, eyes downcast. I feel so powerless. I tightened my hold on her. Right now, maybe. But we're going to turn that around. You're stronger than you think, and you're not alone anymore. The rest of the night passed quietly. We talked in whispers, shared memories that made her laugh in between tears, and I let her sleep on the couch while I stayed nearby. For the first time since the call, I felt a flicker of hope. We had a long fight ahead, but the battle wouldn't be hers alone. Morning came with a gray sky and drizzle, the kind of weather that made the streets glisten and reflected the heaviness in her eyes. I made us breakfast, scrambled eggs, toast, strong coffee, and tried to keep things normal, though nothing about the day felt normal at all. She barely touched her food, staring out the window, lost in thought. After a moment, I gently asked, "Do you want to call him? Try to get your things back." Her hands tightened around her mug. I don't know if I can. What if he yells? What if... Her voice trailed off, fear hanging in the room like a heavy curtain. I squeezed her hand. "Then I'll be with you, every step. You don't have to face him alone." We drove to the apartment complex, my heart pounding with every block. The place looked ordinary from the outside. Same brick facade, same hum of city life. But I knew the storm inside would be anything but ordinary. We walked up to the leasing office and I stayed close, making sure she didn't feel exposed or vulnerable. Inside, she took a deep breath and explained what happened. The manager listened, eyebrows furrowed, jotting notes. "We'll check the security footage," he said, "and I'll speak to him directly. You have every right to get your belongings back." Her relief was palpable, but it was tempered by fear. She kept glancing at me, waiting for some invisible signal that everything would be okay. I nodded, letting her know silently that she wasn't alone, that we'd face this together. As we left the office, rain pattering softly on the pavement, I saw a flicker of resolve in her eyes. She wasn't powerless, not if she had me at her side. By mid-afternoon, we were back at the apartment complex, standing in the shadow of the building that had been her home and had just become a battlefield. She clutched a notebook where we'd listed everything missing: laptop, clothes, jewelry, even her favorite mug that she swore reminded her of happier mornings. Every line of that list felt like a punch to the stomach, but writing it down also felt like reclaiming something she'd lost. I suggested we start with the car. Her husband had taken it, and that was her only mode of independence. We called the police and reported it stolen, giving them the details he had left behind: the license plate, the parking spot, the exact time he had driven off. Each question made her flinch, but she answered. I stayed beside her, whispering reminders. "Breathe, focus. You are doing the right thing." Then came the confrontation with him. He answered the door reluctantly, dressed in yesterday's hoodie, looking annoyed more than worried. I didn't hide my anger, but I kept it controlled. "She wants her things back," I said calmly, placing my hand lightly on her shoulder. "All of them. Now." He scoffed, feigned ignorance, tried to gaslight her, but the fire in her eyes, the hand on her notebook, the presence of someone who wouldn't let him intimidate her, me, shifted the balance. "I'm not taking advice from you," he muttered, but I could see him faltering under the weight of our resolve. We went room by room, documenting, photographing, and reclaiming what we could. Some items were gone, no trace of them left, but her laptop and a few sentimental items were still there. She clutched them like lifelines, tears streaming down her face, a mix of relief and lingering fear. Later, back in my car, she finally let herself cry properly. I didn't speak at first, just held her, letting the car's hum and the soft rhythm of windshield wipers give space for grief and anger to coexist. "I can't believe he did that," she whispered between sobs. "I thought I knew him. I thought I trusted him." "You did," I said softly, "and that's what makes this harder. But trusting doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. And now you know your strength. You survived the worst, and you didn't do it alone." By the time we returned to my apartment, the city had taken on the quiet of evening. The lights reflected off wet streets, cars gliding past like ghosts. She sat on the couch, holding her recovered belongings close, and finally, I saw her take a deep, steadying breath. Not the breath of someone who was fully okay, but the breath of someone beginning to reclaim her life. And I knew, in that quiet, determined moment, that this was the turning point. The man who thought he could erase her life had underestimated the force of a mother's love and a daughter's courage. The next morning, we didn't linger in bed. She was quieter than usual, her exhaustion visible in the heavy tilt of her shoulders, but her eyes carried a spark of determination. I made coffee, and she sipped it slowly, staring out the window as if trying to map the next steps in her mind. We spent hours making calls, lawyers, police, her workplace. Each call was a small victory, each voice on the other end a reminder that the world hadn't abandoned her. Her husband had left a mess behind, but we were slowly turning chaos into order. I watched her take notes, organize documents, breathe through the panic that still bubbled beneath the surface. Every time she faltered, I reminded her, "You're not alone. You are taking this back piece by piece." By mid-afternoon, we returned to the apartment one last time to gather the remainder of her things. Security had been alerted and the manager met us at the door. The place felt eerie, familiar yet foreign. She stepped inside first, scanning the rooms like a cautious hunter. Her eyes landed on the familiar couch, the scattered bookshelves, the small photo frames he hadn't dared to move. She paused, touching one of the frames, then sighed, a deep, trembling sound of someone reclaiming space that had been stolen. Then he appeared. His expression was a mix of disbelief and irritation, like he didn't understand why she wasn't begging or collapsing. "You can't just take everything," he barked. "I can," she said, her voice steady now, firmer than I'd ever heard it. "Because it's mine, and I'm taking it back." I stood beside her, arms folded, radiating quiet but unshakable support. He hesitated, knowing the battle had shifted. He was alone in his anger while we were united. Slowly, he backed down, muttering under his breath, and she moved through the apartment, collecting her belongings with a sense of triumph that was quiet but absolute. Outside, we loaded her things into my car. She paused, inhaling the crisp evening air, the smell of rain on asphalt mingling with the faint scent of her favorite candle I had brought along. "I can't believe I'm doing this," she admitted, voice trembling but proud. "You are," I said, squeezing her hand. "You're reclaiming your life, and no one can take that from you again." By the time we drove away, the sun had dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in bruised purples and fiery oranges. She leaned back, exhausted but unbroken, and I knew this was more than just retrieving stolen things. This was the moment she remembered her own strength, the moment she realized that betrayal might hurt, but it could never define her. And as the city lights blurred past, I felt a quiet certainty that the worst was behind us. She wasn't just surviving, she was rising. The days that followed were a mix of paperwork, phone calls, and quiet moments of reckoning. She spent hours at the police station, giving statements and filing reports, and I sat beside her, holding her hand whenever the weight of it all threatened to crush her. It was exhausting, but with each step, she grew stronger, more certain that she wasn't just a victim, but a woman reclaiming her life. One afternoon, we sat in my kitchen, sipping tea. She stared at her hands, shaking slightly, as if reliving every moment of the past week. I keep thinking, how could he do that? How could he think he had the right? Her voice was raw, laced with disbelief. "Because people like him see weakness and try to exploit it," I said gently. "But weakness isn't you, and you've proven that every single day this week." Her eyes filled with tears, but this time they weren't only for loss, they were for relief, for triumph, for the anger that had turned into action. She had fought back. She had refused to be erased. We talked about her next steps, finding a new apartment, securing her finances, and building boundaries that he couldn't cross again. Each plan, each decision, was a brick in the foundation of her new independence. I watched her energy return, the tension in her shoulders easing, a smile tugging at the corners of her mouth. It was fragile, but real. That evening, she called a friend who had been unaware of the situation. Hearing laughter again over the phone, Seeing her reconnect with her life made me realize how far she'd come. She was no longer hiding on a couch in my living room. She was moving forward, reclaiming joy, one step at a time. Before bed, she hugged me tightly, whispering, "Thank you, Mom. I couldn't have done this without you." Her grip was fierce, desperate, and full of gratitude. "You reminded me who I am." And in that moment, I knew that the battle was won, not just because she got her things back, but because she had found herself again. She wasn't defined by betrayal or fear. She was defined by courage, resilience, and the quiet, unstoppable force of a woman who refused to be diminished. The morning was crisp, sunlight spilling into my kitchen as she sipped her coffee, finally at ease. The city outside buzzed with its usual rhythm, but inside there was a calm, a sense of order restored. She had signed the lease for a new apartment, chosen furniture she loved, and even started setting boundaries for her life that no one could cross. We spent the morning packing her remaining things into boxes, each item a symbol of reclamation, of moving forward. I watched her handle everything with a quiet confidence, the tremor of fear long gone, replaced by a steady determination. Before leaving, she paused at my doorway, keys in hand, and looked at me. "I never thought I'd feel like this again," she said, voice soft but strong. "Safe, in control, like myself." "You earned it," I replied, feeling tears prick my own eyes. "You faced him, you faced the chaos, and you didn't crumble. You rose." She smiled, small but full of meaning, and for a moment I saw the woman she had always been, resilient, proud, unstoppable. "Mom, thank you," she whispered, "for everything." I hugged her tightly, feeling the weight of the past days lift with the embrace. She pulled back, took a deep breath, and turned toward the door of her new beginning. I followed her gaze, and together we watched as she stepped out into the sunlight, carrying her past with dignity, but leaving the pain behind. That night, she called me from her new apartment, the voice in my ear calm and happy, a stark contrast to the tears and panic of days before. "Mom, I'm really okay," she said. "I feel like me again." And I knew, with a certainty that went beyond words, that she had not only survived, but she had won. The man who thought he could erase her life had only proven her strength. She had reclaimed her home, her belongings, and most importantly, herself. The street where she had cried became just another street in the city, a reminder not of fear, but of triumph, courage, and the unshakable bond between a mother and her daughter.